You're pathetic, Madison. A mediocre assistant who mistakes compassion for competence. Richard Prescott's words echoed through the boardroom like a gunshot, silencing the 20 people present. I felt my face burn, not with shame, but with a rage so deep that my hands trembled as I held the document folder. 7 years. 7 damn years I had dedicated to this man, and he shattered me in front of everyone as if I were nothing. But the worst part wasn't the public humiliation. The worst part was realizing that even after everything, some idiotic part of me still hoped he would see beyond his own golden reflection. Now, 3 weeks later, I watch Richard Prescott through the window of Boston Methodist Hospital, and the irony is almost poetic. The man who commanded empires with a single glance, who destroyed careers before breakfast, is lying in that bed with a bandage on his head and eyes as confused as a lost child's. "Ms. Hartley?" "Doctor." Chen's voice pulls me from my trance. "Mr. Prescott is awake, but there are complications." Complications. What a delicate word to describe the fact that the cruelest man in Manhattan doesn't even remember his own name. He's lost the last 10 years of memory. The doctor continues, flipping through the chart. Retrograde amnesia. It could be temporary or not. The brain is unpredictable. 10 years. That means Richard doesn't remember becoming the ruthless tycoon everyone fears. He doesn't remember the fortune he built by stepping on whoever was necessary. And he definitely doesn't remember me, his executive assistant whom he fired 3 weeks ago, with a coldness that still makes me wake up at 3 in the morning. "Why am I here?" I ask, exhausted. "He fired me. There are lawyers, an entire family of leeches waiting for his fortune." Dr. Chen hands me an envelope. Inside, a crumpled business card, mine, found in the pocket of Richard's suit at the time of the accident. "You were the only contact saved in his phone with a star," she says softly. "And when he woke up, the first thing he asked was if Maddie was okay." My heart stops. Maddie. No one has called me that since Richard was human, before greed transformed him into marble. "He needs someone who knows him," the doctor insists. "Someone he can trust." I should laugh. I should throw that card in the trash and walk out of here without looking back. Richard Prescott deserves to wake up alone, lost, scared, exactly how he made me feel for years. But when I enter the room and see those blue eyes, always so sharp, now vulnerable, something in me hesitates. "Maddie?" His voice is hoarse, uncertain. Are you real?" And for the first time in 7 years, Richard Prescott looks at me as if I matter. Fate really is a bastard with a sense of humor. "I'm sorry. I don't understand." Richard's fingers grip the hospital sheets, his knuckles white. "Dr. Chen says I'm some kind of business mogul, but I can't remember any of it. The buildings, the companies, the money." He looks at me with those devastating blue eyes, now filled with panic instead of their usual ice. I can't remember who I am. I should feel satisfaction. I should relish this moment where Richard Prescott, the man who wielded power like a weapon, is reduced to confusion and fear. But instead, I find myself pulling a chair closer to his bed, my professional instincts kicking in despite everything. "What do you remember?" I ask carefully. He closes his eyes, concentrating. "College, Boston University. I was studying business administration. I had a roommate named Tommy, and there was this coffee shop near campus where I spent every morning." He opens his eyes, searching my face desperately. "You were there. Every Tuesday and Thursday. You always ordered a caramel latte and sat by the window with architecture books." My breath catches. That was 10 years ago. Before the money, before the empire, before Richard Prescott became a name that made investors tremble and competitors flee. "You remember that?" My voice comes out smaller than I intended. "It's the clearest thing in my head," he admits, and there's something raw in his expression. "You had this habit of tucking your hair behind your ear when you were concentrating. You still do it." I drop my hand immediately, unaware I'd been doing exactly that. "Richard, I know it sounds crazy, he interrupts, a hint of the old determination flickering in his eyes. The doctor showed me photos, magazine covers, news articles. That man in the pictures looks like me, but he's a stranger, cold, arrogant. He pauses, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Mean. You don't remember the last 10 years at all? Nothing. It's like someone took an eraser to my life. His jaw tightens. But I remember you, Maddie. I remember thinking you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and being too much of a coward to actually talk to you. This is torture. This is some cosmic joke where I'm forced to face the Richard I fell for a decade ago, the one with dreams instead of dollars, with warmth instead of weapons, the one I lost piece by piece as success corroded his soul. You did talk to me, I say quietly. Eventually. And? There's hope in his voice, desperate and young. Did we? It's complicated. That's what Dr. Chen said about my condition. A ghost of a smile touches his lips, genuine, not the calculated smirk I've grown to hate. Seems like everything in my life is complicated now. The door swings open, and a woman in a designer suit that costs more than my monthly rent strides in. Veronica Prescott, Richard's younger sister, all sharp edges and sharper ambitions. Madison. Her voice drips with false sweetness. How touching that you're here. Though I'm surprised security let you in after Richard terminated your employment so publicly. Richard's head snaps toward me. I fired you? Veronica, I start, but she's already moving to Richard's bedside, her expression shifting to concern so fake it could be sold as costume jewelry. Richie, darling, you shouldn't strain yourself with business matters. The doctors say stress could delay your recovery. She shoots me a look that could cut glass. Madison was just leaving. No. Richard's voice carries an authority that makes both of us freeze. Even without his memories, command comes naturally to him. Veronica, I appreciate your concern, but I asked Maddie to stay. She's nobody, Veronica hisses, her mask slipping. A former employee with delusions of importance. Then why? Richard says slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Is she the only person I remember? The silence that follows is deafening. Veronica's face flushes an ugly red, and I can practically see the calculations running behind her eyes. Richard's memory loss isn't just a medical condition. It's a power vacuum. And in the Prescott family, power vacuums are more dangerous than shark-infested waters. Fine, Veronica finally spits out. But don't come crying to me when she takes advantage of your condition. She turns on her Louboutin heels and storms out, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and cheaper threats. Richard looks exhausted suddenly, the brief show of strength draining him. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. I felt like I needed to protect you. From your own sister? Is she always like that? I think about the Veronica I knew 10 years ago. Richard's baby sister who wanted to be a marine biologist and cried during sad movies. No, I say honestly. She wasn't. What happened to us, Maddie? Richard's voice breaks slightly. What happened to turn me into someone who fires people publicly and has a sister who looks at me like I'm a business asset instead of family? I could tell him everything. The gradual transformation, the way success poisoned him, drop by drop. The nights he stopped coming home, choosing boardrooms over bedrooms. The morning he told me that sentiment was a weakness he could no longer afford. But looking at him now, vulnerable and scared and so heartbreakingly familiar, I make a decision that will probably destroy me. I'll help you, I hear myself saying. I'll help you figure out who you became. But Richard, I meet his eyes directly. You might not like what you find. Will you be there when I find out? Yes. Then I can handle it. He reaches for my hand, his grip tentative, asking permission. As long as you're there. And God help me I don't pull away. Outside, storm clouds gather over Boston, and I can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning of the hurricane. Richard is discharged from the hospital 2 days later with a list of restrictions longer than his forgotten stock portfolio and a brain that's still Swiss cheese. Dr. Chen warned me about mood swings, confusion, and possible personality changes. What she didn't warn me about was this: how devastating it would be to watch Richard Prescott see his own life for the first time. This is mine. Richard stands in the doorway of his penthouse apartment, frozen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Boston's skyline. The furniture is all sharp angles and cold metal, and the entire space screams money but whispers nothing about the person who lives here. It looks like a hotel. You liked it that way, I say, stepping inside. The air smells sterile, untouched. You said homes were for people who had time to enjoy them. He walks slowly through the living room, his fingers trailing over surfaces that don't collect dust, because he's never here long enough for dust to settle. In the kitchen, the refrigerator contains bottled water, champagne, and a single takeout container from 3 weeks ago growing sentient life. Did I have friends? People who visited? The question lands like a punch. You had associates, business partners, people who wanted things from you. And you? He turns, pinning me with those blue eyes that haven't yet learned to hide. What did you want from me? Everything. Nothing. You. The real you, buried under layers of ambition and cruelty. I wanted my paycheck on time, I deflect, moving toward his study. The study is worse than the rest of the apartment. Awards line the walls. Businessman of the Year, top 40 under 40, most influential CEO. His desk is pristine except for a laptop and a photo frame face down. Richard picks it up and I already know what he'll find. A picture of himself shaking hands with the mayor, both wearing fake smiles at some charity gala he only attended for the tax write-off. I look miserable, Richard observes. Successful, but miserable. You were very good at success. He sets the frame down and opens the laptop. The password screen appears and he stares at it helplessly. I don't suppose I told you my password. You changed it monthly. Something about security protocols. I don't mention that the last password I knew was Maddie125, my name and the date we first met, before he changed it to something algorithmic and soulless. Richard tries a few combinations, fails, then laughs bitterly. Locked out of my own life. There's a metaphor in there somewhere. The company servers might have records, emails, schedules, contracts. I pull out my phone, then hesitate. Richard, are you sure you want to do this? Sometimes ignorance is bliss? He shakes his head. I can handle the truth, Maddie. What I can't handle is this ghost version of myself everyone keeps describing. The man in these photos, the one who lived in this mausoleum, I need to know if he's really me. Against my better judgment, I make the call. 30 minutes later, we're in the back of a town car heading to Prescott Industries, and Richard looks like he's heading to his own execution. The building is all glass and steel, stabbing into the sky like an ice pick. Employees scatter when we enter, their eyes widening at the sight of Richard. Some look relieved. Most look terrified. Mr. Prescott, the receptionist stammers, her hands shaking. We weren't expecting. I'll call Mr. Harrison immediately. That won't be necessary, I say firmly, though I'm no longer authorized to speak for Richard. Old habits die hard. We're just here to access his office. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor is suffocating. Richard notices every flinch, every nervous glance from the other passengers. They're afraid of me, he whispers. Yes. Were you afraid of me? The elevator dings before I have to answer. Richard's office is exactly as he left it. Immaculate, imposing, designed to intimidate. His assistant's desk sits empty outside. My desk, until 3 weeks ago. Someone has already cleared out my belongings. Madison. Richard's voice pulls me from the memory. He's standing at his desk, holding a folder. His face has gone pale. What is this? I cross the room and my blood runs cold. It's the Henderson file, the small family business Richard acquired and stripped for parts 6 months ago, leaving 30 employees jobless right before Christmas. That was business, I say weakly. Business. He's reading through the documents, his expression growing darker. This man, George Henderson, he built this company over 40 years. He wrote me letters begging me to reconsider, offering to sell his own house to keep his employees paid. Richard looks up, and there's horror in his eyes. I bought it anyway. Then I fired everyone and sold the assets. Richard, there's a note here, in my handwriting. His voice shakes as he reads. Sentiment is expensive. Profit is eternal. He drops the folder like it's contaminated. What kind of monster did I become? A successful one, a voice says from the doorway. Marcus Harrison, Richard's CFO and closest thing to a friend, stands there with his arms crossed. The kind who built a billion-dollar empire by making hard decisions weak men couldn't stomach. Marcus, I acknowledge coldly. Madison, still lurking around, I see. Marcus enters without invitation, his smile sharp. Richard, good to see you up and about. We have quarterly reports to review, and the board is getting anxious about your condition. I destroyed people, Richard says, still staring at the folder. For money. You created value for shareholders, Marcus corrects. That's your job. And what was her job? Richard gestures to me. Why did I fire Madison? The silence that follows is arctic. Marcus's smile doesn't waver. You should ask her. I'm asking you. She made the mistake of thinking she mattered. Marcus straightens his tie. She thought that 7 years of fetching your coffee and warming your bed meant she could question your business decisions. She was wrong. I feel the blood drain from my face. Not because of Marcus's words. I knew what people thought. But because of the look on Richard's face. Get out, Richard says quietly. Excuse me. Get out of my office. You're fired. Marcus laughs, but it sounds forced. You can't fire me. You don't even remember who I am. I know enough. Richard's voice carries that authority again, the CEO emerging through the confusion. I know you just spoke to her like she's disposable, and I know I don't want to work with anyone who thinks that's acceptable. This is because of your memory loss. This is because I finally have clarity. Richard moves around the desk, and despite everything, he's formidable. Security will escort you out. Collect your things. You have 1 hour. When Marcus is gone, Richard slumps against the desk, exhausted. I'm sorry. About what he said. About what It's fine, I lie. It's not fine. He reaches for my hand again, and this time I let him take it. Nothing about this is fine. But I'm going to fix it, Maddie. I don't know how, but I'm going to fix what I broke. Looking at him, vulnerable, determined, so heartbreakingly familiar, I realize I'm in serious trouble, because I'm starting to believe him. The coffee shop looks exactly the same as it did 10 years ago. Same chipped tables, same indie music playing too loudly, same smell of burnt espresso and broken dreams. Richard insisted we come here after leaving his office, saying he needed to see something real, something that made sense. That was your table, he says, pointing to the corner by the window. You sat there every Tuesday and Thursday morning, architecture textbooks stacked so high I could barely see your face. You remember that? But you don't remember running a billion-dollar company? I slide into the booth, and the vinyl squeaks just like it used to. The company feels like fiction. He gestures around the coffee shop, then at me. This feels real. The barista recognizes me. Carlos, still here after all these years, now with gray streaking his temples. Madison Hartley. Damn girl, where have you been? Selling my soul, I say lightly. The usual. Caramel latte, extra shot, no whip. Some things never change. He notices Richard, and his expression shifts, cautious. Mr. Prescott, sir, I'll get your... I don't know what I drink, Richard admits, and there's something almost relieving about his honesty. Black coffee, I tell Carlos. But he used to drink mochas. With extra chocolate. Richard raises an eyebrow. That's very specific. You had a sweet tooth, before you decided sugar was a weakness. Carlos brings our drinks, and Richard stares at his black coffee like it might bite him. Then, rebelliously, he reaches for the sugar packets. Tell me about us, the real story, not the corporate version. I wrap my hands around my latte, buying time. What do you want to know? Everything. How we met, how I went from the guy who was too scared to talk to you to the one who... He stops, jaw tightening. To the one who hurt you. We met here, like you remember. You finally got the courage to talk to me 3 weeks later when I spilled coffee all over your economics notes. A smile ghosts across his face. That sounds like you. You helped me clean it up. Didn't even get mad. We talked for 4 hours, and you missed your afternoon class. I take a sip of my latte, the taste bringing back memories I'd tried to drown. You told me you wanted to build something meaningful, something that would help people, not just make money. What happened? Your father died. The words drop like stones. 6 months after we started dating, he left you nothing but debt and a failing business. You were drowning and I couldn't help. I was just a broke architecture student with dreams and student loans. Richard's hand finds mine across the table. You stayed. I stayed. I watched you work yourself to death, turning that failing business into something profitable, then something successful, then something massive. I pull my hand away, needing the distance. And somewhere along the way, you forgot why you started. When did we... He struggles with the words. When did I become cruel? The question I've asked myself 1,000 times. It wasn't overnight. It was gradual, like frostbite. You stopped coming home for dinner. Then you stopped coming home at all. You hired me as your assistant because you said you needed someone you could trust. But really, you just needed someone you could control. I meet his eyes. The Richard I fell in love with died piece by piece, and I stayed like an idiot, hoping I'd find him again. Did you love him? The man I became? The truth sits between us like a live wire. I hated him, but I couldn't stop loving the ghost of who you were. Richard's phone buzzes, a company phone I set up for him yesterday. He checks it and his expression darkens. It's from someone named Veronica. She's calling an emergency board meeting. Something about declaring me mentally unfit to run the company. That was fast. I'm not surprised. Veronica has been circling like a shark since the accident. Can she do that? If she gets enough board members to agree, she can have you removed as CEO pending a psychiatric evaluation. I start calculating our options. We need to move faster. The board meeting is probably tomorrow. What do I do? It's strange having Richard ask me for guidance. The old Richard would have already had a strategy, 3 backup plans, and someone's career destroyed for good measure. We go to war, I say. But Richard, you need to understand, this is your family, your sister. If you fight her and win, there's no going back. She doesn't feel like family. He leans forward, intense. You feel like family. You're the only person who's told me the truth, even when it hurt. Even when you had every reason to watch me suffer. Why did you have my business card in your pocket? The question escapes before I can stop it. When you had the accident, Dr. Chen said it was the only contact saved with a star. Richard is quiet for a long moment. I don't remember the accident, but Maddie... He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small velvet box. My heart stops. This was in my hospital belongings. The nurses gave it to me. He opens the box and inside is a ring. Not just any ring, a simple silver band with a small sapphire. The exact ring I pointed out in a jewelry store window 10 years ago, joking that it was perfect because it was beautiful without being ostentatious. I had this with me when I crashed, Richard says softly, and your card. And I was driving away from the office in the middle of the day, which apparently I never do. He looks up at me. Dr. Chen showed me the accident report. I wasn't hit by another car. I swerved off the road myself like I was distracted, like I was thinking about something important. What are you saying? I think I was coming to find you. He sets the ring box on the table between us. I think the man I became was trying to find his way back. I can't breathe, can't think, can't process the idea that Richard, cruel, heartless Richard, might have been on his way to me with a ring that means he remembered, that somewhere under all that ice, a piece of the real him survived. That doesn't change what you did, I whisper, what you said to me, how you made me feel. I know. He closes the box but doesn't take it back. I know I can't undo the past. But Maddie, I'm asking for a chance at a different future. Not the future I apparently planned. He gestures to the ring. But a future where I earn the right to be the man you deserved all along. And if your memory comes back, if you wake up tomorrow and you're him again, then you have my permission to walk away and never look back. His voice is steady, sure. But until that happens, I'm choosing to be this version of me, the one who remembers what matters. Outside, the sky opens up, rain pelting the windows like tears, and I realize that Richard Prescott, both versions of him, has always had the power to destroy me. The question is whether I'm brave enough or stupid enough to let him try to save me instead. Okay, I hear myself saying, we'll fight them. Together. His smile could power the entire city. God, I'm definitely stupid. The boardroom at Prescott Industries feels like a gladiatorial arena. 12 board members sit around the mahogany table, their faces ranging from concerned to opportunistic. Veronica presides at the far end, wearing a blood-red suit that screams both power and warning. Richard sits at the head of the table, his rightful place. But I can see the tension in his shoulders. He spent last night reading every file, every report, every document I could find about his company. He knows the numbers, but numbers don't tell you who to trust. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Veronica begins, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. As you know, my brother suffered a traumatic brain injury 2 weeks ago. While we're all grateful he survived, we must address the elephant in the room. Richard has lost 10 years of memory. He doesn't remember our business strategies, our partnerships, or even our current projects. I'm sitting right here, Veronica, Richard says calmly. You can address me directly. Several board members shift uncomfortably. They're not used to uncertainty from Richard Prescott. The old Richard would have already crushed this attempted coup before breakfast. Very well. Veronica's smile sharpens. Richard, can you tell the board about our merger discussions with Tecton Industries? Richard doesn't flinch. The merger you're pushing would give Tecton access to our proprietary technology while diluting our shareholders' equity by 42%. It's a terrible deal dressed up as innovation. I watch Veronica's face carefully. There it is, a flicker of surprise. You've been studying, she says carefully. I've been learning who I was, and who I don't want to be. Richard leans forward. The merger benefits you, Veronica. You own 15% of Tecton through a shell company. Did you disclose that conflict of interest to the board? The room erupts. Board members pull out their phones, checking facts, whispering urgently. Veronica's face flushes crimson. That's a baseless accusation. It's public record, I say, standing and distributing printed documents. Filed with the SEC 3 months ago under Crimson Holdings LLC, which is registered to Veronica's Park Avenue address. Veronica shoots me a look that could melt steel. Madison, you're not even employed here anymore. You have no right. I invited her, Richard interrupts. As my advisor, unless someone wants to challenge my right to choose my own team, silence. The old Richard's authority bleeds through, memory or no memory. This is about your competence, Richard, says Gerald Morrison, the oldest board member and the closest thing Richard had to a mentor. We're concerned. You fired Marcus Harrison, one of our most valuable executives, without cause. You're making decisions based on incomplete information. I fired Marcus because he was embezzling, Richard says flatly. The room goes deadly quiet. That's a serious allegation, Gerald says carefully. It's a fact. I pull up a presentation on the screen. These are wire transfers from company accounts to offshore holdings. Small amounts, spread across multiple transactions, designed to avoid detection. Madison and I found them last night. I'd spent 6 hours combing through financial records with Richard, teaching him what to look for, watching him absorb information like a sponge. The old Richard never would have worked alongside me as an equal. This Richard asked questions, valued my input, and actually listened. Marcus had access to discretionary funds, one board member starts. Discretionary doesn't mean personal, Richard cuts in. He took $4 million over 2 years. I'm filing a police report this afternoon. Veronica stands abruptly. This is ridiculous. You've been awake for a week and you expect us to trust your judgment? For all we know, she jabs a finger at me, is manipulating you, feeding you lies, taking advantage of your condition. Is that what I did? I ask coldly. When I worked 80-hour weeks for 7 years? When I canceled my own life to manage yours? When I stayed silent while you and your brother treated me like expensive furniture? You stayed because you were sleeping with him, Veronica hisses. Don't pretend it was loyalty. Richard stands so fast his chair skids backward. That's enough. It's true though, isn't it? Veronica turns to the board. Their relationship was inappropriate. She has every reason to want control over him now that he's vulnerable. This is a hostile takeover from the inside. Then let me be clear. Richard's voice drops to that dangerous quiet that makes rooms stop breathing. Yes, Madison and I were involved. Years ago, before I apparently became someone who fired her publicly to save face with shareholders who valued ruthlessness over humanity. He looks at me, and there's an apology in his eyes. She stayed because she's loyal to a fault. Because she believed in a version of me that I'd buried. And if anyone in this room thinks I'm going to let you disrespect her, you're welcome to test that theory. My heart is hammering so hard I'm surprised everyone can't hear it. Gerald clears his throat. Richard, no one is questioning Madison's dedication, but your sister raises valid concerns. Perhaps a temporary medical leave, just until you're fully recovered. I'm not taking a leave, Richard says firmly. I built this company. Apparently by being a bastard, but I built it. And now I'm going to run it the right way, starting with undoing some of the damage I caused. What does that mean? Another board member asks nervously. It means I'm reaching out to George Henderson, the man whose company I destroyed for parts. I'm offering to fund a restart of his business and compensation for the employees I displaced. That's financial suicide, Veronica snaps. You can't just give away millions. It's not giving away. It's investing in goodwill. In being the kind of company people want to work with, not the kind they fear. Richard looks around the table. I know I don't remember the last 10 years, but I remember my values. And if those values are different from the man I became, then maybe losing my memory is the best thing that could have happened to this company. The silence that follows is profound. Finally, Gerald speaks. I move that we table the discussion of Richard's competence for 90 days. Give him time to prove he can lead effectively. Seconded, says another board member. Veronica's face contorts with fury. You're all making a mistake. When this blows up, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. She storms out, her heels clicking like gunshots. After the other board members file out, Gerald approaches Richard. That was impressive. Risky, but impressive. He glances at me. And Madison, good to see you back where you belong. Richard was insufferable without you. When we're finally alone, Richard slumps into his chair, exhausted. Did I really fire you to impress shareholders? You said I was a distraction from optimal performance. That it was nothing personal. I sit on the edge of the table. You said it in front of 20 people, including 3 journalists. God, I was a coward. He looks up at me. I'm sorry. For that. For everything. Stop apologizing for things you don't remember doing. I remember now. Not the specifics, but the feeling. I can see it in how people look at me, how they flinch. I was terrifying. His hand finds mine. How did you stand it? Because occasionally, late at night when you were too tired to maintain the mask, I'd see glimpses of the real you. The one who still cared, who still felt things. I squeeze his hand. The one who apparently kept a ring in his pocket. About that, Richard starts, but his phone buzzes. He checks it and his expression darkens. It's from an unknown number. You don't know who you can trust. Check your brother's offshore accounts. Brother? I frown. You don't have a brother. Exactly. Richard forwards me the message. Which means someone's either lying or there's a secret I haven't uncovered yet. And just like that, the victory feels hollow. Because if there's one thing I've learned working for Richard Prescott, it's that every answer leads to a darker question. Richard's penthouse at 2 in the morning looks different than it did in daylight. Less sterile, more haunted. We've been digging through his personal files for hours, searching for any mention of a brother. And all we've found are more ghosts. This doesn't make sense, Richard mutters, pulling another folder from his safe. My father's death certificate lists him as an only child. My mother died when I was 3. There's no brother. I'm sprawled on his couch, laptop balanced on my knees, going through his emails from 5 years ago. Maybe it's metaphorical. A business partner he considered like a brother. Then why the cryptic message? He tosses the folder aside in frustration. Why warn me about offshore accounts? And why now, right after I exposed Marcus? Maybe it's Marcus, trying to deflect attention. I pause, staring at an email thread. Richard, come look at this. He crosses the room, and I'm suddenly aware of how close he is, smelling like coffee and expensive cologne that somehow survived his transformation. Focus, Madison. This is from 6 years ago. You're emailing someone named JP about a private matter. Look at the tone. It's personal, not business. I scroll through the messages. Meet me at the usual place. We need to discuss the arrangement. The payments will continue as promised. No one can know. Richard's face goes pale. Payments for what? The email trail goes cold after this, like you switched to burner phones or something. I pull up another search. Wait, JP. Could that be? My fingers fly across the keyboard, accessing databases that technically I shouldn't have access to anymore, but Richard never revoked my credentials. James Prescott, born in Portland, Maine, 34 years ago. Mother's name, Catherine Hartwell. I don't know anyone named Catherine Hartwell, but your father might have. I turn the laptop toward him. James Prescott, he's a marine biologist working in California. No social media, very private life. And look at his photo. The resemblance is undeniable. Same jawline, same intense eyes, though James's face carries none of Richard's hardness. He looks kind, open, everything Richard trained himself not to be. That's impossible, Richard whispers. My father wouldn't. Your father was drowning in debt when he died. Maybe he wasn't always honorable. I pull up more records. Catherine Hartwell received monthly payments of $10,000 from an account registered to your father. After he died, those payments stopped. Then, I scroll forward. 5 years ago, they resumed, from an LLC registered to you. Richard sits heavily on the couch beside me. I have a half-brother, and I've been paying him off to stay silent. Nor supporting him, I offer. These payments aren't hush money amounts. They're regular, reliable, like you were taking care of family. Then why the secrecy? Why not acknowledge him? I think about the Richard I knew, the one who fired me to avoid appearing distracted. Because acknowledging him would be messy. It would raise questions about your father's character, about legitimacy, about inheritance rights. The board would have a field day. So I just paid him to not exist? Richard's voice is hollow. What kind of person does that to family? The kind who's been taught that image is everything. I closed the laptop. But Richard, the message said to check his offshore accounts. If James sent this, why would he direct you to investigate himself? Unless he's not the one with offshore accounts. Richard's eyes sharpen with understanding. Unless someone else is using my connection to him as leverage. Veronica. She'd have access to my father's old papers, old secrets. Richard stands, pacing. If she found out about James, she could use it to undermine me. Paint me as someone with family scandals, hidden, illegitimate siblings. Or she could be the one with the offshore accounts and James is warning you. I stand too, following his logic. She was pushing that merger. Marcus was embezzling. What if they were working together? We need to talk to James. Richard checks his watch. It's 11 in California. Not too late. Richard, you can't just call your secret half-brother at 11 p.m. and say, "Hi, I'm the guy who's been paying you off. Let's chat." Why not? Because... I falter. He's serious. Because it's insane. This entire situation is insane, Maddie. I might as well embrace it. He's already pulling up contact information. Besides, if Veronica is planning something, we're running out of time. The phone rings 4 times before a cautious voice answers. Hello? James Prescott? Richard's voice is steady despite the tremor in his hands. This is Richard. Your half-brother. I think we need to talk. The silence on the other end stretches so long I think he's hung up. Then, so you finally know. I wondered if you ever would. Did you send me a text message? A warning? What? No. Richard, I haven't contacted you in years. Not since you made it clear you wanted our arrangement to stay private. James's voice carries hurt, old and scarred. Why would I jeopardize the only connection I have to my father's family? Richard and I exchange glances. James, I was in an accident. I lost my memory of the last 10 years. I don't remember our arrangement or why I insisted on secrecy or... He swallows hard. Or why I never met you in person. Another long pause. You lost your memory? It's complicated. But James, someone sent me a message telling me to check your offshore accounts. Do you have any? I'm a marine biologist who spends 6 months a year on research vessels. I barely have a checking account. James sounds bewildered. Richard, what's going on? I think someone is trying to frame you, or use you to discredit me. Richard runs a hand through his hair. James, I need your help. I need to know everything about our father, about my family's past. Things I might have buried. You're asking me? You're the one who made millions while I was grateful for your monthly checks. There's no bitterness in James's voice, just fact. But Richard, if you're serious about wanting the truth, there are things you should know. Things about our father that weren't pretty. Things that might explain why you became the man everyone fears. I'm listening. Not over the phone. This conversation needs to happen in person. James hesitates. I'm actually in Boston, a conference at MIT. I've been here 3 days, working up the courage to contact you. I guess fate decided for me. Richard looks at me, and I nod. Tomorrow. Meet us at... I give him the address of a quiet restaurant in Cambridge. Noon. I'll be there. James pauses. And Richard? I'm glad you called. Even if it took amnesia to make it happen. When Richard hangs up, his hands are shaking. I take them in mine without thinking, and he grips back like I'm the only solid thing in a tilting world. I have a brother, he says wonderingly. A brother I've been supporting but never knew. Tomorrow you'll get answers. Will you come with me? When I meet him? Richard, that's family. I shouldn't... You're more family than anyone else in my life right now. His thumbs trace circles on my wrists, and the touch is so gentle it makes my chest ache. Please, Maddie, I can't do this without you. And there it is, the vulnerability that the old Richard would have died before showing. The honesty that once made me fall in love with a business student who dreamed of building something meaningful. Okay, I whisper. I'll be there. He pulls me closer, and suddenly we're not talking about business or brothers or corporate espionage. We're just two people who've hurt each other and healed each other and somehow ended up here in the middle of the night holding on. Maddie, he breathes, and the way he says my name is both question and answer. I should pull away. Should maintain professional distance. Should remember that this Richard might wake up tomorrow as the man who destroyed me. Instead, I let him kiss me. And for the first time in years, I let myself hope. James Prescott looks nothing like I imagined. While Richard carries himself with boardroom authority even in jeans, James radiates the calm confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. His handshake is warm, his smile genuine, and when he looks at Richard, there's no resentment, only curiosity, and something that might be hope. You look like him, James says as we settle into a corner booth at the Cambridge restaurant. Our father. You have his eyes. Richard shifts uncomfortably. I don't remember much about him. He died when I was 22, and apparently I spent the last 10 years trying to forget everything that came before the money. Maybe that was easier than facing the truth. James orders coffee, black. Richard does the same, and I wonder if he realizes he's mirroring his brother. Richard, our father wasn't the man you thought he was. I know he had debts, that he left me with a failing business. That's the sanitized version. James leans back, choosing his words carefully. Our father, Joseph Prescott, was a gambling addict. He lost everything, his wife's inheritance, his business, his dignity. When your mother died, he spiraled worse. My mother, Catherine, was his secretary. She was kind to him when no one else was. And he got her pregnant, Richard says flatly. He loved her. In his broken way, he did. James's expression softens. But he couldn't leave you, couldn't acknowledge me publicly. So he set up the payments, promised to take care of us. Then he died, and those payments stopped. Until I restarted them. Richard's jaw tightens. Why didn't I reach out? Why just send money? James meets his eyes. Because 5 years ago, when you first contacted me, you made it clear. The payments were contingent on my silence. You said that acknowledging me would compromise the Prescott legacy. That your board would never accept a bastard half-brother undermining family stability. I watch Richard absorb this, see him flinch at the cruelty of his own words. You agreed to those terms, Richard says quietly. I was 29, drowning in student debt, funding my own research on a shoestring budget. $10,000 a month meant the difference between pursuing my dreams and giving up. James's voice holds no judgment. I took the deal. I told myself that having a connection to my father's family, even a secret one, was better than nothing. I'm sorry. Richard's voice cracks. James, I'm so sorry. You were protecting what you built. I understood, even if it hurt. James pauses. But Richard, there's more you need to know about why our father destroyed himself and why you might have followed the same path. The waiter brings our coffee. No one touches it. Our father didn't just gamble, James continues. He made a deal with someone dangerous to cover his debts. A man named Victor Castellano runs half the real estate development in New England through shell companies and intimidation. When our father couldn't pay, Castellano started calling in favors. Made him approve zoning changes, manipulate permits, push through developments that destroyed neighborhoods. My blood runs cold. Richard's company does major real estate development. Exactly. James pulls out a folder. He came prepared. 3 years ago, you entered into a partnership with Castellano Development Group. Multiple projects, hundreds of millions in shared investments. Richard takes the folder with shaking hands. I'm in business with the man who owned my father. I don't know if you knew the connection. Maybe you discovered it, and that's why you've been so ruthless, trying to beat him at his own game. Or maybe... James hesitates. Maybe you became exactly what he wanted, a Prescott he could control. That's why Veronica is making her move now, I breathe, pieces falling into place. If Richard's memory loss means he might break away from Castellano, she needs to seize control before… My phone buzzes. Then Richard's, then James's. We all look at our screen simultaneously. It's a news alert. Prescott Industries CEO under investigation. Secret offshore accounts linked to organized crime. No, Richard whispers, scrolling through the article. They're saying I've been laundering money through Caribbean banks, that there's evidence of racketeering, fraud. It's Veronica, I say immediately. She's setting you up. The offshore accounts were probably hers or Marcus's, and now… Richard's phone rings. Gerald Morrison. Richard answers on speaker. Richard, the board is calling an emergency meeting. Tonight. Gerald sounds grave. The FBI contacted us 20 minutes ago. They're opening an investigation. Richard, this is catastrophic. If you're charged, I didn't do this. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. What matters is perception. The board wants you to step down immediately, effective today. Veronica will assume interim CEO duties pending the investigation. That's convenient for her, I snap. Madison, you need to understand, the company is at risk. Our stock is already dropping. Shareholders are panicking. Gerald sighs. Richard, I'm sorry. But unless you can prove your innocence within the next 6 hours, you're done. The call ends. For a moment, none of us speak. Then James says, I might be able to help. We both turn to him. I told you our father kept records. About Castellano, about the deals he was forced into. My mother saved everything after he died. She said it was insurance, in case Castellano ever came after me. James pulls out a flash drive. Bank statements, recorded conversations, documents showing how Castellano operates. If your company's offshore accounts match his patterns, it proves you were framed. Why didn't you use this before? Richard asks. Because I was afraid. Castellano doesn't forget, doesn't forgive. Going after him meant risking everything. James slides the flash drive across the table. But you're my brother, Richard. I'm not letting him destroy you the way he destroyed our father. Richard stares at the drive like it's a live grenade. James, if we use this, Castellano will know it came from you. You'll be a target. Then I guess it's a good thing I've spent years studying deep-sea ecosystems in remote locations. James's smile is grim. I know how to disappear. I can't ask you to risk. You're not asking. I'm offering. James stands. But Richard, we need to move fast. If Veronica gets control of the company, she'll bury any evidence that doesn't fit her narrative. I'm already calculating. We need a forensic accountant, a lawyer who specializes in white-collar crime, and someone who can get us into the company servers before Veronica changes all the access codes. And we have 6 hours to do it, Richard adds grimly. 5.5 now, James corrects. Richard looks at me, really looks at me, and in his eyes I see determination mixed with fear. Maddie, if we do this, if we go after Veronica and Castellano, there's no going back. You could lose everything, your career, your reputation. I lost those the day you fired me, I interrupt. Now I'm getting them back, on my terms. Our terms, he corrects, taking my hand. Our terms, I agree. James watches this exchange with interest. So you two are… complicated, we say in unison. Right, well, complicated or not, we need to move. James heads for the door. My mother kept everything in a storage unit downtown. We can get the full documentation in 30 minutes. As we rush out of the restaurant, Richard pulls me aside briefly. Maddie, last night, changed everything, I finish. I know. If I get my memory back, if I become that person again, then I'll fight to get this version of you back. I touch his face. I'm not losing you twice, Richard Prescott. His kiss is quick, fierce, desperate. Let's go save your company, I whisper against his lips. Our company, he corrects. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believe we might actually win. The emergency board meeting feels like a trial. Every member sits rigid in their chairs, faces carefully neutral, while Veronica stands at the head of the table like a queen about to claim her throne. The FBI hasn't arrived yet. They're tied up reviewing the evidence, but their shadow looms over everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," Veronica begins, her voice dripping false sympathy. "This is not how I wanted to assume leadership. My brother's condition combined with these serious allegations." "Before you continue," Richard interrupts, standing, "I'd like to present evidence of my own." Veronica's smile tightens. "Richard, the FBI has bank records, wire transfers, fabricated ones." I step forward, connecting James's flash drive to the presentation system. "Bank records that were created using company templates and your access codes, Veronica. We found the metadata." The room erupts in murmurs. Veronica's face flushes crimson. "That's absurd." "Is it?" James enters the boardroom, and several members gasp at his resemblance to Richard. "I'm James Prescott, Joseph Prescott's other son. And I have documentation proving that these offshore accounts belong to Castellano Development Group, the same group my half-sister has been secretly partnering with." I pull up the evidence on screen. Wire transfers from Veronica's personal accounts to Castellano fronts, encrypted emails discussing removing Richard from the equation, recorded phone calls where she promises Castellano complete control of Prescott Industries once she's CEO. "You set up the merger to give Castellano access," Richard says, his voice steady, despite the betrayal etched on his face. "You framed Marcus to remove my closest ally. You called this meeting to force me out before I could discover the truth. And you fabricated federal crimes to ensure I'd be arrested, not just removed," Richard continues. "How long have you been working with Castellano, Veronica?" Gerald Morrison stands, his face ashen. "Veronica, these are serious allegations. Do you deny any of this?" Veronica's mask finally cracks. "You don't understand. Castellano owns half this city. He owned our father, and he would have owned Richard too if—" She stops herself, but it's too late. "If what?" Richard presses. "If you hadn't lost your memory," Veronica explodes. "The old Richard was manageable, predictable, cruel enough to work with Castellano without asking questions. But this version of you," she gestures wildly, "this soft, sentimental version that apologizes and compensates victims. You're a liability. To Castellano, to the company, to everything our family built." "Our family built nothing," James says quietly. "Our father sold his soul to a monster, and you were about to do the same." The door opens, and FBI agent Sarah Chen enters with two other agents. "Veronica Prescott, we'd like to ask you some questions about financial irregularities we've discovered in your accounts. And we've been very interested in your communications with Victor Castellano." Veronica's face goes white. "You can't. I have diplomatic immunity." "You're not a diplomat," Agent Chen says dryly. "And we have warrants." As agents escort Veronica out, she turns to Richard one last time. "This isn't over. Castellano doesn't forget." "Then he and I have something in common," Richard replies coldly, "because I won't forget what you tried to do." When the door closes, the boardroom sits in stunned silence. Finally, Gerald speaks. "Richard, on behalf of the board, I apologize. We should have trusted your leadership. The question is, where do we go from here?" Richard looks at me, then at James, then back to the board. "We rebuild. Not just the company, but its reputation. We cut all ties with Castellano Development, even if it costs us short-term profits. We establish an ethics committee with real power. And we create a foundation to help the businesses and families my previous decisions harmed. That will cost millions," one board member protests. "Then it costs millions," Richard says firmly. "I built this company by being someone I'm ashamed of. I'm going to fix it by being someone I can respect." Gerald smiles, the first genuine smile I've seen in this room in years. Motion to confirm Richard Prescott as CEO, effective immediately. All in favor? The vote is unanimous. 2 hours later, Richard and I stand on the roof of Prescott Industries, watching the sun set over Boston. The city glitters below us, full of possibilities and second chances. James left for the airport, Richard says quietly. Back to his research vessel in the morning, but he promised to visit at Christmas, as family. He's a good man. He's everything I should have been. Richard turns to face me. Maddie, I need to tell you something. Dr. Chen called this afternoon. My heart stops. Your memory? Some of it's coming back. Fragments, images, feelings. He takes my hands. I remember firing you. I remember the look on your face, the way your hands shook. I remember feeling like I had to do it, that showing weakness would destroy everything I'd built. Richard, let me finish. I remember loving you so much it terrified me. I remember wanting to propose but convincing myself that love was a luxury I couldn't afford. That the man I needed to be didn't get to keep the woman he loved. Tears blur my vision. That man was wrong. That man was an idiot. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out the velvet box. I don't remember buying this ring, but I remember the day you pointed it out 10 years ago and said it was perfect because it was beautiful, without being pretentious. I remember thinking I'd buy it someday when I deserved you. Richard, I don't deserve you. Not the man I was, and probably not the man I am now. But Maddie, Madison Hartley, I love you. Both versions of me love you. The difference is, this version is brave enough to admit it. He opens the box, and the sapphire ring catches the dying light. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. Not until you're sure which Richard you're getting. His voice cracks. But I'm asking you to take a chance on us. On the possibility that losing my memory was the best thing that ever happened, because it let me find my way back to who I should have been all along. I look at this man, this beautiful, broken, healing man, and I see both versions of Richard Prescott, the ruthless CEO and the tender boy who bought me coffee, the man who fired me and the man who defended me, the person he became, and the person he's choosing to be. You want to know something? I say, taking the ring from the box. I don't care which Richard I get, because they're both you, and I've loved you through all of it. Even when I hated you, I loved you. I slide the ring onto my finger. It fits perfectly. So yes, I whisper, yes to chances, yes to possibilities, yes to you. His kiss tastes like tears and laughter and hope. We're broken people with complicated histories and uncertain futures, but we're broken together, and somehow that makes us whole. I have a confession. Richard murmurs against my lips. I remember something else. What? I remember that you're terrible at morning meetings, and that you steal my coffee when you think I'm not looking, and that you only tuck your hair behind your ear when you're nervous. I laugh, pushing him playfully. Sounds like you're stuck with me. Sounds perfect. He spins me around, the city lights creating a halo around us. Madison Hartley, will you not marry me yet, but be my partner in business and in life? Help me build something that matters? On one condition. Name it. No more firing me. That's a deal breaker. He laughs, and it's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Deal. Below us, Boston comes alive with evening lights. Somewhere, Veronica sits in federal custody. Somewhere, Castellano is losing his grip on the Prescott empire. Somewhere, James is preparing to dive back into the ocean, safe and acknowledged and free. And here, on this roof, Richard Prescott and I are writing a different ending. Not the ending where pride destroys love. The ending where losing everything helps us find what really matters. Ready to go home? I ask. With you? Richard pulls me close. Always. We leave the roof together, the sapphire ring glinting on my finger, a promise of second chances and better tomorrows. The old Richard would have called it weakness. The new Richard calls it hope. And me? I call it perfect. 18 months later. The coffee shop looks different now. New paint, updated furniture, but the same soul. Carlos still works the counter, though now he's the owner. Richard bought the place when it was facing foreclosure and sold it to him for $1. "Call it an investment in nostalgia," Richard had said. But I knew better. It was about saving something good. I sit at my old table by the window, architecture magazines spread before me, not for study anymore, but for my actual job. Madison Hartley, Chief Sustainability Officer of Prescott Industries, tasked with designing community spaces that give back instead of take. Caramel latte, extra shot, no whip. Carlos sets down my drink with a grin. "And your fiancé called, said he's running 10 minutes late." Fiancé. The word still makes me smile. 6 months ago, Richard proposed officially, not on a corporate rooftop, but here, at this table during the breakfast rush. He'd gotten down on one knee with coffee-stained napkins as an audience and said, "I asked you once to take a chance on possibilities. Now I'm asking you to take a chance on forever." I'd said yes before he finished the question. The door chimes, and Richard enters, snowflakes dusting his coat. Boston in December is brutal, but he's glowing despite the cold. He slides into the booth across from me, stealing a sip of my latte like he always does. "How was the Henderson meeting?" I ask. "Perfect. George is officially reopening his manufacturing plant in March. All 30 original employees rehired, plus 20 new positions." Richard's smile could power the city. He cried, Maddie. 65 years old, and he cried thanking me for giving him his life's work back. "You're a good man, Richard Prescott." "I'm a man trying to be good," he corrects. There's a difference. His memory came back fully 8 months ago. Every ruthless decision, every cruel word, every person he'd crushed on his way up. He remembers it all now. The first week after the memories returned, I'd wake to find him staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., haunted by his own past. "I remember who I was," he'd told me, "and I'm choosing not to be him anymore." It hasn't been easy. Some board members resigned when Richard started prioritizing ethics over profits. Shareholders complained when quarterly earnings dipped while we invested in community programs, but Gerald Morrison stood firm, and slowly, others followed. Prescott Industries isn't the biggest empire anymore, but it's one people are proud to work for. "James called," Richard says, pulling out his phone. "He's bringing someone to the wedding." "Someone?" "Her name is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, marine biologist. He's been gushing about her for 3 months but was too nervous to make it official." Richard's grin is pure mischief. I told him if he didn't invite her, I'd call her myself. "You're meddling in your brother's love life. That's what brothers do." The way he says it, casual, warm, natural, still amazes me. Richard and James talk every week now. James spent Thanksgiving with us, regaling us with stories about deep-sea expeditions while Richard listened like a kid hearing fairy tales. They're building what they should have had all along, family. Veronica sent another letter, I mentioned carefully. Richard's expression shudders slightly. What does she want this time? To come to the wedding. She's out on bail pending trial, and she says, I pull out the letter, written on prison stationery. She says she understands if you say no, but she wants you to know she's sorry. That federal custody gave her time to think about who she became. Richard takes the letter, reads it silently. I watch emotions flicker across his face. Hurt, anger, and finally, something that might be forgiveness. What do you think? He asks. I think that's your decision. She's your sister. She tried to destroy me. And you once fired me in front of 20 people. I reach across the table, taking his hand. People change, Richard. You're living proof. He's quiet for a long moment. If she comes, she sits in the back, and there's a security guard nearby. That's fair. And if she does anything to ruin your day, I'll have her arrested again. I laugh. Our day. It's our wedding. Your day, he insists. I'm just the lucky bastard who gets to marry you. Carlos brings Richard his mocha, with extra chocolate. the way he drinks it now. Some changes stick. Richard gave up black coffee the same week he gave up being cruel, and never looked back. The venue called, I tell him. Everything's confirmed. 200 guests, dinner reception, string quartet for the ceremony. And the honeymoon? 2 weeks in New Zealand. James recommended a marine sanctuary where we can volunteer. You'll be feeding penguins. Penguins? You said you wanted the honeymoon to mean something. I'm holding you to that. Richard laughs. That full, genuine laugh I fell in love with a decade ago. I'm going to be a CEO feeding penguins. The Wall Street Journal will have a field day. Let them. The ruthless Richard Prescott is gone. This one's much better. This one is terrified he's going to mess up the vows, Richard admits. I've rewritten them 6 times. Just speak from your heart. My heart keeps saying I don't deserve her on repeat. Then your heart is an idiot. I lean forward, lowering my voice. Richard, you saved 30 families by reinstating George Henderson. You've created a foundation that's helped 200 small businesses recover from predatory practices. You turned your company from a terror into a model of corporate responsibility. You brought your brother into your life and gave him the family he deserved. I did all that because of you, he says softly. Because you stayed when you had every reason to leave. Because you believed in a version of me I'd forgotten existed. I stayed because I loved you. Both versions. The cruel one too? Especially the cruel one. Because he was broken and scared and trying to survive the only way he knew how. And because buried under all that armor was the man I'm marrying in 3 weeks. Richard stands, pulling me up with him. Right there in the middle of the coffee shop, he kisses me, deep and desperate and full of promise. Carlos whistles. The other customers applaud. I don't care. This is us. Messy and public and perfectly imperfect. 3 weeks. Richard whispers against my lips. Then you're Madison Prescott. Actually, I'm keeping Hartley. Madison Hartley Prescott has a nice ring to it. As long as you're mine, you can call yourself whatever you want. We gather our things, preparing to face the December cold. But before we leave, Richard pauses at the door, looking back at our table, the place where everything began. You know what the best part about losing my memory was? He says. Getting a second chance. Getting to fall in love with you twice. He pulls me close. Once when I was too young to appreciate it, and again when I was finally smart enough to fight for it. Outside, snow blankets Boston in white. The city that witnessed our first meeting, our painful separation, and our hard-won reunion. Tomorrow, Richard will return to the office and continue rebuilding what he once broke. I'll meet with architects about the Henderson Community Center. James will call from somewhere in the Pacific with updates about wedding plans and the mysterious Elena. Life won't be perfect. Richard still has nightmares about the man he was. I still flinch sometimes when he raises his voice in passion, expecting cruelty instead of enthusiasm. We're both works in progress, healing from wounds that went soul deep. But we're healing together. And in 3 weeks, I'll walk down an aisle toward the man who lost everything to find what mattered, who forgot who he was, to remember who he wanted to be, who proved that sometimes the cruelest thing about memory isn't what we remember. It's who we choose to be once we do. Ready to go home, future Mrs. Hartley Prescott? Richard asks. I take his hand, the sapphire ring catching the streetlight. With you? Always. We walk into the snow together, leaving footprints that disappear almost immediately. But it doesn't matter. We're not looking back anymore. We're too busy building forward. The end.